Welcome. Welcome to Media Day. It's an exciting time for our program. It comes at a nice time during training camp. We're about 25% of the way through, what is a 4-week preseason. I feel like our team and our program is off to a good start. I'm pleased with our effort level. I'm not as pleased with our execution as I hope to be a couple weeks from now, but I don't know that that's unique to anybody in the country at this point. I hope today was an enjoyable experience for the media, for our fans. It certainly was an enjoyable experience for our program to have an open practice, to see the fans out there lining the one side, filling the stands. Yeah, I know it certainly brought a little bit of a different energy to our team, and in speaking to some of the fans and some of the families of our players, I think they really enjoyed it. So, we look forward to doing it again in the future next year, and something hopefully that we can carry on as a tradition here, in the Rutgers football program. To give you a little bit of an update on the roster, Darrell Stevenson, who we thought had a minor injury to his lower body, turns out he has a broken bone in his foot that is going to keep him out for the year, and that's disappointing for us. But you're not going to see Darrell on the field this year. I'll give you a little bit of an update on the Max Asaka situation. Max has not been with us. We knew he wasn't going to be with us. There's been a death in his family. It is one of the traditions in their family that the services be done in their homeland, which is Ghana. So Max is going to be with us this year, but probably not for another week, unfortunately, and certainly somebody we see in our plans this year. And we wish his family nothing but the best. They have our condolences, and we're praying for his safe travel, there and back. But Max is about another week from being with us, unfortunately. And with that, if I can answer any of your questions, I'll do it.
Ken, guys, just there's a microphone on this side and one on the right-hand side.
Kyle, when did Darrell Stevenson get hurt?
It was a couple days ago. I want to say 3 practices ago. I'd have to check the injury report to see exactly which day it was. We thought it was a minor thing. It turns out it's not.
Kyle, can you give us your assessment of the scrimmage and what your initial thoughts?
You probably get sick of hearing head coaches say this after first scrimmages, but it was sloppy. I wrote down, before I came up here just to see what it was. I write them down on the field. 7 penalties in the scrimmage today, and I didn't write each one down to show you the breakdown, but it's hard to win football games with 7 penalties. Just sloppy, and it's the sloppy ones that get you. The false starts, the offsides on defense. We had a couple penalties of aggression that I don't think they're necessarily negative. We want the players to be aggressive. They just got to be a little bit smarter, and I don't think they'll get the penalty. But I thought the effort was good. I thought the execution of the offense and the defense needs to be better, but is about where I thought it would be after the first week. And the only thing I would add was I thought there was a lot of back and forth today. I really did. I thought it was one of those practices that really took some momentum swings, which I think is good. That means we got a competitive football team.
Coach, following up on those lines of sloppy offense today, you've had 3 different coordinators in 3 different years.
Can you repeat the first part?
Considering today was a sloppy scrimmage, you said today?
Correct.
Yeah. Considering 3 years you've had 3 different coordinators, is this along the line of people just catching on to what needs to be done?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the reasons that our execution, even though we made some sloppy mistakes, our execution's at a level that I think is a little bit further along than we've been, even though it's not where we need to be. But I think that having Dave Brock be our offensive coordinator, having worked in this system and keeping the system intact, has relieved some of that. Because I think if you had 3 coordinators, 3 different systems, 3 years, I would agree. That's hard on the players. And when I got the head coaching job here, that was something I didn't want to be the case.
Could you comment on the quarterback play, how you thought Gary and Chase fared?
I haven't had a chance to watch the film yet, so I'll probably have a little bit more of a comment on it on Monday. I think just watching it on the field, I think Gary probably had a little bit better day than Chase did. What I would stress to everybody is, when we ultimately make this decision, it won't be based on one day. It's going to be based on a body of work.
Coach, could you talk about the true freshmen as a whole, how they've adjusted so far through this, first week of camp, and what kind of things you guys do to limit the shock factor of their first week of college football?
I don't know that you can limit the shock factor of their first week of college football. I think having a 5-week summer program certainly helps that. 5 weeks to train with Jeremy Cole and his staff, that helps a little bit. As I've said before, when you're out there running around with 21 and 22-year-old men, there's going to be a little bit of a bright-eyed look in a lot of rookies' faces. The one thing I would say about this freshman class that has really excited me and pleased me is their willingness to play physical football and their willingness to compete.
Kyle, could you just talk a little bit about the defensive line play? Were you concerned that maybe they didn't generate enough pressure today, or is it still too early to tell?
The only reason I'd say it's too early to tell is because I haven't watched the film yet. I don't know if that's the case. When you're in this type of scrimmage and you have a different colored jersey on the quarterback, there are times where a defensive lineman may get in there and he peels away, which is the right thing to do because we don't hit our quarterbacks in practice. Whereas if it was a live situation, he may have gotten to him. He may have affected the throw. He may have created a quarterback pressure of some kind. So I think I don't know that I would agree with that until I watch the film.
Yeah, Cal, what are your early thoughts on Pollard so far? Had a few practices to take a look at him.
I think Jamil is exactly what we thought he would be. A big, strong, athletic defensive lineman who is aggressive. He's an aggressive guy, and he even became a little bit vocal today, which was nice to see that.
Do you? I know it's too early to. I know it's too early to make a decision, but do you see him contributing this year, or what are your early thoughts?
I don't know that. I think we're probably another week away from being able to tell that.
Coach, you've had a great recruiting class this year, and one thing the prior coach had when he first started years ago, he wanted to build a fence around New Jersey. You've done a great year so far, but how do you continue that? Because we're in a great room now attached to recruits. How are you going to continue that?
We want to build a wall around the state of Rutgers. That's what we want to do. But what that really entails is having our same recruiting areas year after year, building relationships with the high school coaches, so that we get the best information, so that we can make the best decision. Because on the high end, you can only take 25, and there certainly will be a lot more than 25 Division I football players in the state of Rutgers every year. We need to have the relationships built with the coaches, have the relationships built with the prospective student athletes that will allow us to choose the right ones for our program. Because when you choose the right player for your program, regardless of what the media or the rankings or whatever they may be, you generally get a really good player in your program. Devin and Jason McCourty were not very highly touted coming out of high school. They were the right players for our program, and now they both play in the NFL and are key contributors. So we do want to build a wall around the state of Rutgers. We absolutely do. But the most important part of that is the second part, where because we build that wall, we can find the right people to come to our program every year.
Kyle, we saw a lot of freshman receivers get action in the scrimmage today pretty early. Is this where you're starting to figure out who might play and who might not this year with those freshman receivers?
Every day we're evaluating that. So every day they have an opportunity to show us that they could be somebody who can be a contributor in games, the first year. Part of that is going to be with their receiver play. Part of that is going to be what kind of contribution could they make on special teams. So there's really two areas that we're trying to evaluate it. We certainly evaluated it today, but we evaluate it every day. But I really think the freshmen need another week to see how much of the system they can master, because as the installs continue and as the formations get tweaked and ultimately the game plan goes in, you got to make sure it's not just the ability to line up and run a particular route really well. He's got to be able to function within the scope of the offense, or to go back to Pollard, he's got to be able to function within the scope of the defense.
Kyle, can you talk a little bit about, this is a four-pronged question from me, but it's about four different players, okay? Can you talk a little bit about the development in order of Savon Huggins, Isaac Holmes, Batim Bujari, and finally Keith Lumpkin?
What if I don't do it in order?
You can do whatever you at this point, just walk on order.
No problem. No problem. All right, let's go one at a time. Savon Huggins. I would say Savon Huggins is having an excellent training camp so far. I'm very pleased with where he's at. Batim Bujari is going to be one of the leaders on our football team for the next 3 years. I believe he'll be an excellent center for us, and I think his ability to communicate and the tempo with which he practices with is really going to help our team become better. Keith Lumpkin has made excellent strides. We played him at right tackle in the fall. We've moved him to left tackle. In the spring and last fall, we've moved him to left tackle because ultimately when you have offensive tackles, you don't just have offensive tackles. You're trying to figure out at what point who are the left tackles in that group because you need to have some of them too, more than one for sure. And Keith has done a nice job so far, a really nice job. He needs to still get stronger, but he's doing that. And then who is Ike? Ike's my guy now. I recruited Ike. And I've had an opportunity to watch Ike over the last 4 years. I actually recruited all those guys. But Ike is going to be somebody that's going to allow us, because of his high level of play, to play Scott Vallone at the 3 technique position. And that nose guard position has potential to be a very disruptive focal point in our defense. A guy like Ramel Meekins, a guy like Peter Tverdov, those guys made a guy like Scott Vallone. That position produces tackles for loss. And Ike has shown us the ability to do that.
Kyle, what kind of time frame are you looking at with the defensive line rotation and getting some clarity there?
If we're going to play 8, probably game week is when we'll know exactly. But I think before that we'll know, okay, these 4 are going to play a certain amount. Then these next 2 guys are going to play in these situations. And then we got maybe 2 other guys. Okay, they have a specific role in this football team. What is it? Maybe it's first down. Maybe it's third down. Maybe it's a sub package. So I think ultimately the whole thing will last until game week. But I think as we get through the second week, you'll start to see it unfold with a little bit more definition.
Kyle, considering the struggles in the run game the last 4 years, what gives you the confidence that you're going to be able to run the ball effectively?
Really, the last quarter of the season last year. That's what it is. I think we got back to being a pro-style offense, which is what we were built for. It's what we recruited to. We drifted away from that the 2 prior years. And I think what you saw last 4 games last season, and then you saw in the spring, and I think we're seeing a little bit of it now in training camp, is the repetitions. Because the more they do it, the better they're going to get at it, the better the running backs are going to see it, the better the fullback is going to fit it. And that's really what gives me the optimism. Now they got to go out and prove they can do it.
Talking about the running game, what were your thoughts on the running game today in the scrimmage? And also I wanted to ask you about Peoples, his performance today.
I only saw with the naked eye, and I certainly could have missed one, but I only saw 1 negative run. And when you're trying to evaluate a run game, one of the things you try to minimize is negative runs, because those are the ones that get you off schedule. They put your quarterback in undue pressure. They put your protections in undue pressure. That, to me, was a major positive. Now, I also saw quite a few 4-yard-plus runs. I thought Peoples today showed that he had the ability to make somebody miss. Now, what he also showed today was he put the ball on the ground. And if you put the ball on the ground at running back, you don't get to play running back.
Are there 1 or 2 position changes that you've already made, from last season that are really standing out to you right now as a move you like, or someone that's really improved their play?
The only comment I would have about that is there are certain players on our team right now, and I'll give you 2 examples, that are performing at a level where they're telling the coaching staff, hey, find a place for me to play. I can help this football team win. And I'll give you an example. Quentin Gauss. Quentin Gauss did an excellent job in the spring playing one of our linebacker positions. So now we've tried him in a pass rushing role on 3rd down just to see how he would adapt. We like the way he did that. So now what we're trying to decide is there maybe more of a role for him? Because if you're fortunate to have some good players at a particular position, which we are, we've got Maul Morrell, we've got Kevin Snyder, and we've got Quentin Gauss, who kind of all in the same part of the depth chart. You got to find a way to get those people on the field because of their performance. And so that would be one on defense. And the guy on offense that's doing that is Andre Civil. Andre Civil, I said a couple days ago, was probably the one guy in that second group right now who has the best opportunity to move up because of his performance. He's performing at a level that's saying, hey, coach, I can help this team win football games. So now we got to try to figure out in week 2 where that's going to be. Does that mean maybe he plays a little bit of guard? It may. to see if he can get on the field and help us win, because his performance in the practice field is telling us that he can.
Green has been recovering from the broken leg this offseason. How has he looked and how is he feeling from what you've seen in the past couple weeks?
I got a great look at him today, and I was very pleased. He looked like the Kasim Green I remembered from last year. He really did. He had some big hits. He had some great tackles. He was flying around. It was exciting to see him back on the field because he didn't go in the spring, so it was nice for me to see that.
Kyle, has Rob pretty much kept the defense intact, the scheme-wise, and what's your vision of the defense this year, the way you're going to play?
We're going to play Rutgers defense. That system is the system that we have played for the last 7 years, because really the evolution of it started in 2005. Yeah, there has been no change.
I guess talk about what it's like to get a player like a Jameel Pollard to come in, this late in the game. What it's like to add a player like him to the roster, and then what it's like for him to come into this, this late in the game, and how that affects, what his, role could potentially be this season.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see what ultimately his role will be this year. We don't know that. We were excited to add him to our program. It was a unique situation, one that hopefully we'll never see again. But I think anytime you have an opportunity to add a quality player and quality person to your program that wants to be in your program, I don't think there could be a negative to it. He has blended in very well with our team from the first day. The players have really surrounded him and welcomed him, especially that freshman class. A guy from South Jersey like Quanzell has really wrapped his arms around him. And you would never know that he just got here if you watch him interact with our players.
Coach, with Miles Schuler, how's he progressed, and where do you see him fitting in the next 3 years?
Miles has done a really good job. He's catching the ball cleaner than he ever has, and at the receiver position, that's the key for him. He's always going to have a role on our football team because of his speed. He's a world-class speed guy. I would like to see how much he can do in special teams. He's going to have a role on offense. There's no doubt. He's going to play for us at receiver. But if he plays for us on receiver and he can return kicks and return punts, he's become more valuable to us. So those are the things we're trying to work out as we go through training camp.
Well, you're starting to get some confidence in Federico. It's only around 37 yards.
Yeah.
Spring, obviously. You're starting to get some confidence.
I am starting to get some confidence in Kyle, and I'm still trying to figure out ways to get him off his game. I may hit him with a bag or something right before he kicks, but he's got a great temperament to him. He's been very consistent, and as you've heard me say before, there's nothing more valuable to a coach than consistency, and that's what he has been. His kicks have early rise, which I learned a long time ago is one of the keys when you're looking at a kicker. How fast does that ball get off the ground and get up in the air so that the jumpers can't get it? We're really pleased with where Kyle is right now.
Coach, we've talked about the players. Name some of the things that you've done over the last couple of months since you're in a new position to enhance your position, maybe seeing some other teams play, some other clinks you've gone to, or some others you're going to enhance your positions, coach, for this team.
Really, what I've tried to do the first couple months, I really think one of the most important things the head football coach does is hire the staff. Who are going to be the 9 full-time assistants and 4 graduate assistants that ultimately are going to be with your players more than anybody? Now, who is going to be the head strength coach that you're going to hire that is going to be with your players more than your position coaches, just because of the way the NCAA rules are? The strength coaches work with them all year round. As coaches, we can't do that. That, to me, was the single most important thing that I did. Much more important than gathering training camp schedules, which, again, I don't want to say where I got them from, but I certainly had the ones we used here. I had the ones I've used in the past at other schools. And I did reach out to some other Division I coaches and say, hey, show me what you do in training camp. I'm just curious to see it. And what you find is there's really not a lot of variation. Everybody pretty much has the same template of how they do things. But those are organizational. And I had a good foundation to work from with that. To me, the most important thing for this program was going to be who were going to be the people that I was going to bring into this program to surround the players with. And that I'm really pleased. Having watched them in the spring and watched them now for the first week of training camp, I'm really pleased that the men that are mentoring the young men in our program.
Kyle, me again, and again, I'm going to beat the same horse. But
my Hudson County guy, come on.
That's exactly, and you know that well. In the case of Bajari, okay, here's a kid that was not recruited as a center. As a matter of fact, never played center in his life before you and your staff turned him into a center. How much in that respect is that a role model to other kids as they come in and say, hey, here's somebody who's worked really hard in his 2 years. He's now, number one on the depth chart at a position that he wasn't recruited at. And how much can that be, show to other kids that, hey, all you have to do is it's the top 11 football players. It's not so much pigeonholed top 11 tackles or the top 11 guards or whatever. This is a kid that's made himself into a starting player on the Division I level.
There's no doubt. But you can call Charlie Voorhees at Sea Caucus and ask Charlie. Well, I asked Charlie this question: what position did Kyle think Beteam would play coming out of high school?
Is that what you said?
And I told him center. I always felt Beteam would be a center. And I think every offensive line coach has their criteria in their head of what they think each guy looks like. And when I met Beteam in high school, I thought he was the ideal center. I thought his skill set would go really well towards it. I think what you also see, though, is, as you said, Beteam has played for us at guard, and now he's our starting center because Beteam is a selfless guy. He's a team first. He wears the family band and he lives it. He doesn't just wear the family band. So when I said to him, this is the best thing for our team going forward, he was all in. And he spent the rest of his time getting as proficient at that skill set as he could.
Kyle, returning to Rob Smith, how much of a luxury was it to have such a veteran-laden unit bringing in a new defensive coordinator?
Are you asking me if I like the fact that Kasim and Steve and Scott Verlone and Deron Harmon and Logan Ryan are back on the defense? Is that what the question is?
In layman's terms,
okay.
Yes.
I love it. But I would say to you, Rob Smith coordinating the defense was just as important. Rob, I've coached against Rob. I know exactly how talented he is as a defensive coordinator. I know how good our scheme is and our system of defense, and he allowed me to keep that intact.
You just mentioned Logan Ryan. I mean, he's somebody that was, one of the top-rated players at his position coming out of high school, waited his time, got his first chance to start last year, and, had a great season. Do you see him, in a position to continue that rise and, become one of the top players in the conference and, maybe eventually the country?
We think very highly of Logan. What that garners in postseason awards, those are opinion-based awards. I do think Logan is an excellent football player. It would not shock me if he did garner those type of awards. The more important thing to me is he plays his position at a very high level within the system we run on defense. He is, again, I use the word selfless like Beteam. He is, if the system allows him to make the play in the backfield, then it does. If the system allows him to be, in the deep half of the field, where it may appear he's not involved in the play, but that's what we need on defense, that's what he does. He's as quality a character person as we have.
Coach, what improvements have you seen from DC Jefferson in these first few practices?
I think DC is still working himself into shape a little bit, but what I saw today was much improved. DC's only in his third year playing tight end, and he's been playing tight end for 3 years, but it takes time. He spent an entire life playing quarterback. Now this is his third year. He wasn't able to go in the spring because of an injury. So now, having Darnell Dinkins coach him, a guy who played that position in the NFL for 10 years, to mentor him, as we get into the second week, I really think we're going to start to see some great strides.
Any other questions for Coach? Why do you want us to watch the last play today?
It was not for you, Tom. I know you were paying attention. There's no doubt. I knew you were glued on it. I was trying to keep the fans riveted to the scrimmage at that point. I know those scrimmages could be a little bit long for the general fan base. Thanks for coming out today, guys.